Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Annie Kurosami. I live in Avon, Ohio, and I am a medium. I have a wonderful husband and 4 beautiful children. We live in an upscale neighborhood of beautiful homes. And by the way, our home is located directly atop graves from 1886. Apparently back in 1885 and 1886, many people in Avon died from some sort of flu. And if they were farm workers or their families, they would be buried on the property when they died. When we first moved here in the year 2000, they began making themselves known. The whole family began experiencing strange events, not necessarily negative, more of a playful sense is what I got. I began speaking to them. Very first spirit I made contact with was Harold Von Hess, 30-something years old and a very wonderful person. The following recording was one of the first times I had made contact with my dear friend, Harold Von Hess. It was during the thunderstorm. Listen carefully. At the end of the recording, you will hear his response. I am here with you. Thank you. Here with me. Harold, are you here with me? At first, he was the only one that would speak to me. Then I began overhearing other spirits speaking and calling each other by name. So I would call the name of the spirit and ask to speak to them. Eventually, I became friends with all of them, one by one. I learned about the history of what had happened in 1885 and 1886 by speaking with them. About a year ago, my 19-year-old nephew passed away. Suddenly, something had ruptured in his brain. My son Joseph was with him at the time and performed CPR on him until help arrived. He was taken to a nearby hospital and pronounced dead. Meanwhile, the entire family rushed to his side. While we were all at the hospital, a call came from my nephew's home number, Joseph's cell. Several messages were left from Jonathan, my deceased nephew. One message said, "Joseph, it's not your fault." It was my nephew's voice. After the funeral, I went to his home to speak to him. He was hiding for some reason. I said, "Jonathan, could you be hiding in here? Please speak to me now." His reply was, "How'd you notice?" "Jonathan, could you be in here? Could you be hiding in here? Please talk to me now." Ever since then, my nephew Jonathan lives with me in my home too, even if he is deceased. I speak to my spirit family and friends like I speak to anyone else, believe it or not. Ever since I can remember, I would speak to the spirit people and they would speak to me. Even as a child, I would tell the living what the dead were saying, and the living listened. I remember being back in West Virginia in the old house where I was born. We were too poor to afford a hospital, and my great-grandmother delivered me and many of the other children in the town of Shady Springs, West Virginia. She was what you might call a holistic healer and a medium. Many of the townspeople would come to her for treatment of many afflictions. At night, she would amaze me with her tales of spirits and the supernatural. I was a good listener. Now it has been many years since my great-grandma has passed away, but I still remember her very clearly, and she's still with me as I carry on in her footsteps for the spirit's quest to be heard.